Ambassador Han Sol walked into the huge council chamber for what he knew would be the last time his black shoes clicked against the shiny metal floor as he moved toward the human section. The sound echoed in the massive room that could hold thousands of beings from different worlds. All around him, alien creatures sat in their special seats. Some had tentacles that moved like snakes. Others had crystal bodies that sparkled under the bright lights. The room buzzed with strange sounds as different species talked in their own languages. The air smelled like a mix of different chemicals from all the alien life forms. Han Sol looked up at the giant dome ceiling where holographic stars showed the positions of all the council worlds. 47 different species were represented here, and humans were the newest members. They had joined only 3 years ago with such hope and excitement. The council speaker was a tall blue creature with 4 arms and glowing yellow eyes. He stood at the center podium looking down at everyone like a king judging his subjects. His voice boomed through the translation devices that every delegate wore today was supposed to be about helping human colonies that were under attack. Pirates and raiders had been hitting human settlements in the Outer Rim for months now. Families were dying. Ships were being destroyed. Entire communities were being wiped out. The human government had asked the council for military support just like the council had helped other species before. But Han Sol could already see the answer in the aliens' faces. They looked bored. Some were playing with their communication devices. Others were talking quietly among themselves. A few were even sleeping. Nobody seemed to care about human suffering. The Vorthan delegate was the worst. He was a gray creature with tentacles instead of arms and 3 eyes on stalks. His translator made clicking sounds when he talked. He had always treated humans like annoying children who did not belong with the grown-ups. Next to him sat the Nexari representative. She looked like a walking crystal sculpture with sharp edges that caught the light. Her people were known for being very smart, but also very cold. They thought emotions were a weakness that primitive species had not evolved past yet. The Zelthan delegate was purple with scales and wings folded against his back. His people had been saved by human medical teams during a plague outbreak just 2 years ago. But now, he would not even look at Han Sol when the human tried to make eye contact. Ambassador Yuki was the only one who seemed worried. She represented a species that traded regularly with humans. Her people looked almost human, except for their silver skin and large eyes. She had worked closely with human diplomats and understood what they brought to the council. Han Sol remembered when humans first joined the council. The ceremony had been beautiful. Human children sang songs while alien dignitaries watched human scientists presented gifts of new technology. Human artists shared paintings and music from Earth. Back then, the aliens had seemed interested. They asked questions about human culture and history. Some even said they looked forward to learning from this new species. But that interest faded quickly when humans started actually contributing. Humans had helped evacuate 3 million Zelthan refugees when their planet was hit by solar flares. Human doctors had created vaccines that stopped the Crimson Plague from spreading to 12 more worlds. Human engineers had fixed communication problems that other species could not solve. Human soldiers had fought bravely in border conflicts protecting alien civilians. But instead of gratitude, the humans got criticism. They were too emotional, too unpredictable, too willing to take risks. Other species said human methods were sloppy and dangerous. They complained that humans did not follow proper procedures. The worst part was that human contributions were getting bigger results than traditional council methods. Human medicine saved more lives. Human technology worked better. Human tactics won battles that others could not. But instead of praise, this success created jealousy and fear. The council speaker finally called for attention. His forearms moved in gestures that meant he was about to make an important announcement. Han Sol stood up straighter, knowing what was coming. The request for emergency military aid to protect human colonies is denied, the speaker said in his booming voice. The council has decided that humanity expansion into disputed space regions is too aggressive. We cannot support military actions that might destabilize the peace. Han Sol felt his heart sink, but he was not surprised. The same council that had begged for human help during emergencies was now abandoning humans in their time of need. The same species that benefited from human generosity were now calling humans dangerous. Furthermore, the speaker continued, the Council has voted to place restrictions on human expansion. Any new human colonies must be approved by this body. Human military ships are limited to designated patrol zones. Human trade agreements with non-Council species must be reviewed. This was too much. The Council was not just refusing to help. They were trying to control human civilization like parents controlling a child. They wanted all the benefits of human membership without giving humans the respect they deserved. Hanso looked around the chamber one more time. He saw the smug expressions on alien faces. They thought they had put the troublesome humans in their place. They believed humans would accept these insults and restrictions because humans needed the Council more than the Council needed humans. How wrong they were. Hansol walked to the speaking platform in the center of the chamber. His footsteps seemed louder now. Every alien eye was watching him. Some looked amused, thinking the human would beg for reconsideration. Others looked bored, expecting a typical diplomatic protest. The human delegation formally withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. Hansol announced. His voice was calm, but it carried clearly through the chamber. We will no longer provide our medical aid, our technology, our military support, or our scientific research to this organization. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then the laughter started. It began with quiet chuckles from the Vorthan section and spread through the chamber like a wave. Soon hundreds of aliens were laughing and making their species equivalent of mocking sounds. Let them go, called out the Nixari delegate. Her crystal voice rang like breaking glass. What could one primitive species possibly contribute that 46 advanced civilizations cannot provide ourselves? The Vorthan delegate waved his tentacles dismissively. Good riddance to emotional creatures who cannot follow simple rules. We will be better off without their chaotic influence. Even the Zeltan delegate, who owed his people's survival to human doctors, joined in the mockery. Humans think too highly of themselves. Perhaps isolation will teach them humility. But not everyone was laughing. Ambassador Yuki sat quietly in her section, looking worried. She had worked with human scientists and engineers. She knew exactly what the Council was about to lose. Her people depended on human trade and friendship. She understood that this moment would change everything. Hansol gathered his papers and walked toward the exit. His team of human diplomats, scientists, and military advisors followed behind him. Their faces showed disappointment, but also determination. They had tried to work within the system, but the system had rejected them as they left the chamber. Hansol could still hear the alien laughter echoing behind them. Let them laugh, he thought. They would not be laughing much longer. Within hours, human ships were leaving Council space stations all across the galaxy. Scientists packed up their research equipment. Military advisors deleted their tactical files. Doctors closed their medical facilities. Engineers shut down their maintenance programs. The great human experiment in galactic cooperation was ending. But it was ending because of alien arrogance, not human failure. The species that called humans primitive were about to learn exactly how much they depended on human capabilities. What none of the laughing delegates realized was that humans had become the invisible backbone holding galactic civilization together. They maintained critical systems, solved impossible problems, and protected against threats that other species did not even know existed. As the last human transport ship departed, the Council Central Station Administrator Dae Hyun sent a final message to his replacement. All maintenance schedules, emergency protocols, and threat assessment files are in the computer system. Good luck. The Nexari administrator who received the message barely looked at it. How difficult could it be to manage systems that primitive humans had been running? He would find out very soon. The moment humans left the Galactic Council, the countdown to collapse had begun. 3 weeks had passed since the humans left the Galactic Council. The alien delegates had stopped laughing and were now facing their first real problems. The main communication system that connected all 46 worlds was acting strange. Messages were taking longer to send, and some were not arriving at all. The Nexari technicians who had taken over from human engineers insisted it was just a small problem. They said their advanced minds would fix it quickly. But every day, the delays got worse, and more messages disappeared completely, Administrator Corval sat in his new office staring at screens full of error messages. He had replaced the human administrator Dae-hyun with great confidence, thinking that managing simple systems would be easy for his superior Nixari intellect, but nothing made sense anymore. The food distribution network was failing. Waste recycling systems were running at half speed. The artificial gravity kept changing strength, making people float or feel too heavy. Water purification systems were producing strange tastes and smells. Corval had tried reading the maintenance manuals that humans left behind, but they were written in a way that assumed the reader understood human thinking patterns. The instructions seemed to skip important steps or mention things that were not in the equipment specifications. Meanwhile, far away in space, Captain Tae-jin commanded the human merchant ship Star Runner. His crew had been delivering supplies to independent colonies when they received an encrypted message from Commander Bo Ram, who used to work as a military liaison with the Council Tae-jin. The message said, "We have a serious problem. Remember those deep space monitoring stations we set up to watch for the void seekers? The Council does not even know they exist, and they went dark the moment we pulled our people out." The void seekers were what humans called the mysterious robot fleets that had been exploring the galaxy edges for months. Human long-range sensors were much better than anything the Council had, and they had been tracking these strange ships for a long time. The information about Void Seeker movements had been sent to Council Military Command regularly, but it was always filed away as low-priority intelligence from primitive human sources. The alien military leaders thought their own short-range scanners were good enough. Navigator Soo-jin pulled up the star charts on her screen, showing the predicted path of the robot fleets. If the Void Seekers follow their usual pattern and there is no early warning system, they will reach the Tertian system in 6 days, she said. Engineer Min-ho looked up from his workstation. "Should we warn the Council?" he asked. Tae-jin stared at the display showing 12 million innocent Tertian civilians who had no idea that death was coming toward their world. "Send an anonymous warning through emergency channels," he decided. "But we are not going back to save people who called us primitive." The warning message reached Council headquarters, but without proper human identification codes, it was automatically marked as unverified intelligence and buried in paperwork. The Tertian delegate never saw it, because the message routing system was one of many things that humans had maintained. Back on the Council Central Station, things were getting worse every day. The lights flickered randomly in some sections, while other areas stayed too bright or too dark. The temperature control systems could not decide if they wanted to be hot or cold, making everyone uncomfortable. Ambassador Yuki found herself working 18 hours a day, trying to keep basic systems running. Her own people were starting to complain that their trade agreements with humans were being affected by the Council infrastructure problems. She tried to contact human representatives to ask for technical help, but found that all human communication channels had been closed. The humans had not just left the Council, they had cut off all contact completely. The Nixari replacement for Administrator Dae-hyun spent most of his time in meetings trying to explain why everything was breaking down. He kept saying that the problems were temporary and that superior alien technology would solve them soon. But the problems were not temporary. They were getting worse every day. Systems that had run smoothly for years were now failing in ways that made no sense. The alien engineers could not understand why fixing one problem seemed to create 3 new problems. "Perhaps we should try to contact the humans for technical assistance," Yuki suggested during one of the endless emergency meetings. Council Speaker Nexon turned his forearms in a gesture of anger. His blue skin darkening. "We will not crawl back to those primitive beings," he declared. "Our advanced civilizations will solve these minor difficulties." But they were not minor difficulties. They were signs of something much bigger that none of the Council species wanted to admit. For 3 years, humans had quietly become essential to keeping galactic civilization running, and now that support was gone, the communication delays were not just annoying, they were dangerous. Military commanders could not coordinate. With their fleets, emergency services could not respond quickly to disasters. Scientific research projects were falling behind. Scheduled trade routes that had operated smoothly for decades were now experiencing constant problems. Cargo ships were getting lost because navigation systems were giving wrong information. Supply chains were breaking down because scheduling systems could not handle the complexity. On the industrial world of Maxis Prime factories were shutting down because the power grid kept failing. The Nexari engineers insisted that their people had built these systems and should be able to fix them. But every repair attempt made things worse. The truth was that human engineers had been quietly upgrading and improving these systems for years. They had added safety features and backup systems that other species never knew existed. They had written software patches that prevented disasters and made everything work better. Now those improvements were failing one by one, and the aliens did not even know they existed. The original alien systems were not designed to handle the increased load and complexity that had developed over time. Dr. Zex Nar, the Council's chief science officer, was having his own problems. Research projects that had been progressing smoothly were now hitting impossible barriers. The quantum computers that powered advanced calculations were producing random results. The problem was that human mathematicians had been providing the theoretical framework that made these calculations possible. Their unique way of thinking about problems had solved equations that alien minds could not handle. Without human input, the alien scientists were discovering that many of their recent breakthroughs had actually been human discoveries that they had not understood. The most advanced projects were grinding to a halt. Meanwhile, the military situation was becoming critical. Border patrols were reporting strange sensor readings, but the analysis computers could not make sense of the data. The tactical planning systems that had seemed so smart were actually human-designed interfaces that translated complex information into formats that alien minds could understand. General Corville of the Draconian military stared at tactical displays that showed meaningless patterns without human interpretation software. "How did we win battles before the humans joined the Council?" he asked his staff. His aide checked the historical records. "According to our files, we did not win many battles before human tactical support became available. Most conflicts were resolved through overwhelming numbers or superior technology. But superior technology meant nothing if you could not use it effectively, and overwhelming numbers were useless if you could not coordinate them properly. The human ability to think creatively and adapt quickly had been the key to recent military successes. The first major disaster struck exactly when the human warning had predicted 12. Massive robot ships appeared in the Tertian system and began attacking the orbital defense platforms. The Tertian fleet was caught completely by surprise. Emergency signals flooded the Council communication networks, but the damaged systems could not handle the message traffic. Most of the calls for help never reached their destinations. The few messages that did get through took hours to arrive. Military commanders tried to coordinate rescue operations, but found that their ships could not communicate with each other properly. The tactical computer systems that they depended on were producing error messages instead of battle plans. 6 million Tertians died in the first day of fighting. The robot attackers used weapons and tactics that the Council had never seen before. Their ships adapted to defensive strategies within minutes, making traditional military responses useless. The Council finally realized that the humans had been right about the Void Seeker threat. But now it was too late to ask for help and too late to prevent the disaster. The species that had called humans primitive were learning that human primitive methods might have been the only thing keeping them alive. As reports of the Tertian disaster reached the Council chamber, the alien delegates sat in shocked silence. They had thought losing human support would be a minor inconvenience. Instead, it was turning into a catastrophe that threatened the entire galactic civilization. The attack on Tertian Prime was only the beginning. 3 more worlds fell to the robot fleets in the following week, and the Council could do nothing to stop them. The alien military leaders watched helplessly as their ships were destroyed and their planets burned. On the Council Central Station, the lights went out completely for 6 hours, leaving 46 different species trapped in darkness together. The emergency power systems that should have activated automatically had failed because no one knew how to maintain the human-designed backup protocols. Ambassador Yuki sat in her dark office trying to contact anyone who could help, but the communication arrays were now working only 10% of the time. Messages that used to travel across the galaxy in minutes now took days to reach their destinations if they arrived at all. She finally managed to get through to Ambassador Han Sol on New Sol, using an old emergency frequency that humans had shared years ago. The connection was filled with static and kept cutting out. Han Sol. She said the situation here is desperate. Everything is falling apart and people are dying. Can humanity help us? There was a long pause before Han Sol answered. Where was the council when human colonies were under attack? You called us primitive and dangerous, now you want us to fix your problems. Please, Han Sol, Yuki begged. This is not about politics anymore. Innocent people are suffering. I understand that, Han Sol replied, but my government will not send our people back to serve a council that treated them with contempt. If the council wants human help, they must ask properly and offer something in return. The conversation ended when the communication system failed again, leaving Yuki alone in her dark office listening to the sounds of panic in the corridors outside. Meanwhile, Captain Tae Jin received urgent messages from Commander Bo Ram, who was monitoring the situation from a hidden observation post. The robot fleets are not acting randomly, she reported. They are following a pattern and learning from each battle captain. So Young, who commanded a human reconnaissance ship, had been tracking the Void Seeker movements from outside Council space. Her long-range sensors showed 3 more massive robot fleets approaching the industrial core worlds. If they reach the manufacturing planets, the entire galactic economy will collapse, so Young warned. The Council military has no idea these attacks are coming because they're early warning. Systems depend on human technology. Engineer Min Ho studied the attack patterns on his display screens. These robots adapt to whatever tactics the Council uses. He said, if the aliens keep fighting the same way, they will lose every battle. The problem was that Council military doctrine had not changed in centuries. Their commanders learned standard battle formations in military schools and followed the same strategies that had worked against other alien species. But the Void Seekers were not, like any enemy they had faced before, on the military command station. General Corville stared at tactical displays that made no sense without human interpretation software. His staff officers were equally confused by the data streams that human analysts used to predict enemy movements. How did our ancestors win wars before we had these computer systems? Corval asked his aide. The aide checked historical military records. Sir, our ancestors mostly fought other species who used similar tactics and technology. The battles were decided by who had more ships or better weapons, not by strategy. But the robot fleets had both superior numbers and superior technology. The only advantage the Council had possessed was human tactical creativity, and that was gone back. On New Sol, President Kehoe called an emergency meeting of the Human Colonial Union. The debate chamber filled with representatives from human worlds across the galaxy, many of them refugees who had fled Council persecution. Representative Hai Jin from the Kepler colony stood up to speak. The Council treated us badly, but innocent people are dying. Should we let civilians suffer because their leaders were arrogant? Representative Du Hyun from the military colonies disagreed. If we help them, now they will learn nothing. They will continue to think they are superior and treat us as servants. Captain Bo Ram attended the meeting as a military advisor. She presented intelligence reports about the true scale of the Void Seeker threat. These robots are not just raiding, they are systematically destroying galactic civilization. She explained. The reconnaissance data showed that the robot fleets were not random pirates. They were part of a coordinated invasion force that had been preparing. For years, human deep space monitors had been tracking their buildup, but the Council had ignored the warnings. Without human early warning systems, the Council cannot see the next attacks coming. Bo Ram continued. Their military computers cannot analyze robot tactics because they were designed by humans to process information in ways that human minds understand. Representative Min Su asked the critical question, what happens if galactic civilization collapses completely? Will we be safe in our isolated human colonies, Captain? So Young answered from her position at the tactical display. The robot fleets will not stop with Council worlds. Once they control the galactic infrastructure, they will come after everyone, including us. The debate continued for hours while emergency signals from Council space grew more desperate. Refugee ships filled with alien civilians were fleeing toward human territory, begging for sanctuary that the human government was not sure they should provide. Finally, President Kaiho called for order. "We face a choice," he said. "Do we let the galaxy burn because of alien pride, or do we try to save civilization itself?" The vote was close, but humanity decided to offer help. However, they would not simply return to their old role as unappreciated servants. The conditions for human assistance would be revolutionary. Han Sol prepared the response message that would change galactic politics forever. "Humanity will provide emergency assistance to prevent further loss of life," he wrote. However, this aid comes with requirements that must be accepted before any human personnel return to Council space. The conditions were simple, but would transform the balance of power. Humans would operate under their own command authority, with full control over any systems they repaired or defended. Council species must publicly acknowledge that human contributions had been essential to galactic civilization. Most importantly, any future cooperation would be between equals, not between advanced species and primitive newcomers. The days of alien condescension were over. Council Speaker Nexon received the human message in his emergency bunker as the central station suffered another complete power failure. The proud alien leader who had dismissed humans as primitives now faced an impossible choice: accept human demands and admit that his species had been wrong, or watch galactic civilization collapse into chaos and death. The robot fleets would not wait for his pride to recover. Outside his bunker windows, Nexon could see the lights of the station flickering as critical systems failed. One by one, refugee ships from destroyed worlds were arriving faster than the station could process them. The alien civilians were frightened, and desperate emergency reports covered his desk, describing cascading failures across dozens of worlds. The communication networks that connected the galaxy were nearly dead. Transportation systems were breaking down. Food distribution was failing. Medical facilities were running out of supplies. The mighty Galactic Council that had ruled 46 species was crumbling, and only the primitives they had rejected possessed the knowledge to save it. Nexon looked at the human conditions again. Full acknowledgement of past mistakes, public apology for previous treatment, equal partnership in future cooperation. It was everything his pride rejected, but also the only path to survival. In the distance he could hear the sounds of panic, as another section of the station lost life support. The choice was no longer about maintaining alien superiority. It was about preventing the complete destruction of everything they had built. The Council Speaker reached for his communication device to send a response that would humble his species but might save galactic civilization. The age of alien arrogance was ending, and the age of human partnership was about to begin. Council Speaker Nexon stared at the human demands for 3 days while the galaxy burned around him. Each hour brought new reports of disaster, more worlds falling to robot attacks, more systems failing, more civilians dying in the chaos. The proud, blue-skinned leader had spent his entire life believing that his species and their alien allies were superior to primitive newcomers like humans. Now he faced the most humiliating choice in galactic history: admit they were wrong or watch everything. Collapse Ambassador Yuki waited in the emergency command center, surrounded by flickering screens and the constant sound of alarms. She had volunteered to carry the Council's formal response to humanity, knowing that this message would determine the fate of billions of lives. The other alien delegates sat in their emergency session chamber arguing about pride and politics, while outside their windows refugee ships crowded the space stations, damaged docking bays. Families from destroyed worlds begged for food and shelter, but the failing infrastructure could barely support the existing population. Finally, Nexon made his decision. He called for a full council vote on accepting human conditions. The debate was fierce. Many delegates still believed that asking humans for help was beneath their dignity. "We are advanced civilizations," argued the Vorthan delegate, waving his tentacles angrily. "We should not bow to primitives who got lucky with a few technological discoveries." The Nexari representative clicked her crystal limbs in agreement. "These failures are temporary setbacks. Our superior intellects will solve them without human interference." But General Korval stood up in the military section holding a datapad full of casualty. Reports 12 worlds have fallen, he announced grimly. Our fleets are being destroyed faster than we can build them. The robot enemy adapts to every strategy we try, Captain. Zex Tar from the Draconian forces added his own grim assessment. Our tactical computers cannot predict enemy movements without human analysis software. We are fighting blind while they see everything. Ambassador Yuki spoke from her position near the communication arrays. I have worked with human engineers and scientists. She said they do not just follow orders like our people do. They think in ways that solve problems we cannot even understand. The Zelthan delegate finally admitted what many had been thinking. My people owe our lives to human medical teams during the plague outbreak. We survived because humans shared their knowledge freely. Now we refuse to swallow our pride to save the galaxy. The vote was closer than anyone expected, but fear of extinction finally overcame alien arrogance. The council agreed to accept human conditions with one change. They would send the apology and acknowledgement, but they wanted to negotiate the terms of human authority. Yuki carried this message to New Seoul, where President Kehoe and his advisors were watching the galactic situation deteriorate through their own monitoring systems. Human deep space sensors showed that the robot invasion was much larger than anyone had realized, Captain. So Young presented her latest reconnaissance data to the human leadership. The main robot fleet has not even arrived yet, she reported. What we have seen so far are just advanced scouts. The real invasion force contains thousands of ships. Engineer Yu Jin had been analyzing the robot technology and her findings were disturbing. These machines learn from every battle they fight, she explained. Each defeat makes them stronger. Our victories today become their advantages tomorrow. Representative Du Hyun raised the obvious question. If the robots keep getting smarter, how do we defeat an enemy that learns from everything we do? Commander Bo Ram answered from her intelligence position. We use the one thing robots cannot understand: human unpredictability. We do things that make no logical sense from their perspective, President. Kehoe read the council's response message carefully. They were still trying to maintain some dignity while asking for help. The human leader understood alien pride, but he also knew that half measures would not save anyone. Send this reply, he instructed. Ambassador Han Sol, tell the council that humanity appreciates their decision, but the terms are not negotiable. Either they accept full human authority over military and technical operations, or we cannot guarantee success. The message caused another crisis in the council chamber. Nexon realized that humans were not just asking for respect, they were demanding complete control over the very systems that defined galactic power. How can we give primitive humans authority over our advanced technology? Protested the Nexari delegate. It violates everything we believe about civilizational hierarchy. But the alternative was becoming clearer every day. 3 more worlds had fallen while they debated, and the robot fleets were moving toward the core, industrial systems that powered the entire galactic economy. Dr. Welsim, the council's chief scientist, had been quietly studying the pattern of system failures. He finally spoke up in the emergency session. Our technology is not actually failing, he announced. It is revealing how much it depended on human modifications and improvements. The scientist explained that human engineers had been quietly upgrading alien systems for years, adding safety features, backup protocols, and efficiency improvements that other species never understood. The original alien technology was not advanced enough to handle the complexity of modern galactic civilization. We thought we were teaching humans how to use our superior systems. Welsim continued, but they were actually fixing our primitive designs and making them work properly. This revelation shocked the alien delegates. They had believed their technology was naturally superior, when in reality, human improvements had made it functional. Ambassador Han Sol received urgent intelligence from Captain Tae Jin, who was monitoring council space from his merchant ship. The robot advance fleet is moving toward the Maxis Prime industrial complex, he reported. If they capture those manufacturing facilities, they can build unlimited reinforcements. The timing was critical. The council had to decide immediately whether to accept human authority or face the complete destruction of their industrial capacity. President Kehoe made the final decision. Humanity would Help, but only as equal partners with full operational control. The days of being treated as junior members were over. Send the ultimatum to the council, Ki-Ho ordered. Either they accept our terms completely within 6 hours, or we withdraw the offer, permanently. When Nexon received this final message, he knew that time had run out. The robot fleets were approaching the most critical systems in the galaxy, while his people argued about protocol and precedence. The council speaker looked around the emergency chamber at the faces of delegates who still believed they were superior to humans. Despite all evidence of their dependence on human expertise, many still could not accept the truth, but the reports on his desk told a different story. 40. 3 worlds now under robot attack. 16 completely destroyed communication networks. 90% failed. Industrial production down 60%. Food distribution systems collapsed outside his window. He could see the lights of the central station dimming as power systems failed without human maintenance. The proud galactic civilization was dying, and only the species they had dismissed as primitive could save it. Nexon picked up his communication device and prepared to send the response. That would change galactic politics forever. The age of alien superiority was ending, whether his people wanted to admit it or not. The Council accepts all human conditions without modification. He transmitted, "We formally request immediate assistance, under full human authority," as the message traveled toward human space. Nexon wondered if this humiliation would be worth saving the galaxy, or if they had waited too long to swallow their pride. Council Speaker Nexon stood before the emergency assembly of 46 alien species. His blue skin was pale with exhaustion, and his forearms trembled as he read from the prepared statement that would humble his people forever. The Galactic Council formally recognizes that human contributions to galactic civilization have been essential and were wrongly undervalued. He announced to the silent chamber, "We apologize for our treatment of humanity and request their assistance as equal partners in rebuilding our damaged systems." The alien delegates sat in shocked silence. Many had never heard their leadership admit error before, especially not to species they considered inferior. The proud Vortan delegate looked sick, while the crystal Nexari representative seemed to be cracking along her edges. Ambassador Han Sol watched the broadcast from the bridge of the human flagship New Harmony as it approached the Council Central Station. His technical teams were already analyzing the scope of failures while military advisors prepared battle plans against the robot invasion. Captain Tae Jin, who now commanded the civilian rescue mission, stood beside him. "It's not enough," he muttered. "They are only apologizing because they need us." "Maybe, Han," Sol replied, "but it's a start. And more importantly, the galaxy is watching. Every species now knows that humans are not primitive newcomers to be dismissed." The restoration effort began immediately. Human engineers took control of critical systems while their alien counterparts watched and learned. The techniques that had seemed like magic were actually simple solutions that required thinking differently about problems. Engineer Yu Jin led a team of Nexari technicians through the communication array repairs. "The problem is not broken hardware," she explained patiently. "It's adaptive software that learns from how people use it. Your species builds rigid systems that break when conditions change. Humans build systems that grow and adapt." Nexari workers tried to understand, but their minds were trained to think in absolute patterns. Human engineering required creativity and intuition that their logical thought processes could not match. Meanwhile, Commander Bo-Ram coordinated the military response to the robot threat. With human tactical analysis, restored Council forces could finally predict enemy movements and develop effective countermeasures. "The next major attack will come here," she announced, pointing to the Sigma Centauri system on the tactical display. "But this time we will be ready." The Battle of Sigma Centauri became the turning point in the war. Human-led Council forces used tactics that confused the robot fleets, adaptive programming, instead of direct attacks. They employed misdirection technology, sabotage, and psychological warfare concepts that machine minds could not understand. Captain Su Jin, now commanding her own fighter squadron, led the most daring part of the plan. "They expect logical responses," she radioed to her pilots. so we will be completely illogical. The human fighters performed maneuvers that violated every rule of space combat, approaching from impossible angles and targeting systems that seemed unimportant. The robots could not adapt to tactics that made no sense from their mathematical perspective. Engineer Min-ho had developed special virus programs that attacked the robot ship's computer systems. The viruses did not follow normal programming logic. Instead, they used human creativity patterns that machine intelligence could not predict or counter. The main robot fleet arrived expecting to face the same confused resistance they had encountered before. Instead, they found coordinated forces using tactics that changed faster than their learning algorithms could process. Human unpredictability became the key weapon against an enemy that could adapt to any logical strategy. Captain So Young led deep strike missions that hit robot supply lines in ways that served no apparent tactical purpose, but disrupted their entire operational framework. Within 2 weeks, the robot invasion was completely defeated. The surviving machine ships retreated to deep space, unable to understand how their superior technology and adaptive intelligence had been overcome by seemingly random human behavior. But the victory was only the beginning of larger changes. The old Galactic Council was formally dissolved, and in its place a new organization emerged based on principles of equality and mutual respect. Galactic Federation, as it came to be known, had no superior or inferior species. Each member contributed according to their strengths and received support based on their needs. Human creativity, alien logic, different forms of intelligence working together instead of competing ambassador. Han Sol was elected as the Federation's first Secretary General. Not because humans were superior, but because they had demonstrated the wisdom to treat all species as equals from the beginning. The transformation was remarkable. Species that had once dismissed human contributions now competed to establish research partnerships and cultural exchange programs. The Zelthan people opened medical schools that taught human treatment methods alongside their traditional healing arts. The Nexari began incorporating human adaptive programming into their computer systems, creating hybrid technologies that were more flexible than pure logic-based designs. The Vorthan military adopted human tactical unpredictability. While maintaining their traditional discipline, Ambassador Yuki became the head of the new Interspecies Cooperation Department. Her experience working with humans during the crisis made her the perfect person to help other species learn collaborative methods. Captain Tae Jin established a merchant fleet that connected human and alien worlds, creating trade networks based on mutual benefit rather than exploitation. His ships carried not just goods but also ideas and cultural exchanges that enriched every world they visited. Engineer Yu Jin opened technical schools across the galaxy, where human and alien students learned together. Human creativity, combined with alien precision, produced innovations that neither species could achieve alone. The galaxy had learned a painful but valuable lesson about the dangers of arrogance and the strength that comes from diversity. The species that had once laughed at human primitiveness now understood that different ways of thinking were not weaknesses, but advantages. President Ki-ho visited the new Federation headquarters on the rebuilt Central Station and marveled at how much had changed. Representatives from 73 different species now worked together as partners instead of competitors. Zubiaosi. Old council chamber, where aliens had once mocked human contributions, was transformed into a collaboration center where different forms of intelligence combined to solve problems that no single species could handle alone. Standing in the Federation Assembly Hall, looking out at delegates from dozens of worlds working together as equals, Han Sol reflected on the journey that had brought them here. Humanity had left the Galactic Council as unwanted primitives rejected by species who thought they were superior. They returned as partners in building a new kind of civilization based on respect, cooperation, and the revolutionary idea that every species has something valuable to contribute. The moment humans left the Council, everything did fall apart. But from those ruins, something far better was built. The galaxy learned that true advancement comes not from believing you are superior to others, but from recognizing that diversity of thought and approach makes everyone stronger. The new Federation faced many challenges ahead, but they would meet them together as equals using the combined wisdom of dozens of different species. Human creativity, alien logic, varied perspectives, all working toward common goals. The age of galactic cooperation had finally begun, and it was more beautiful than anyone had imagined possible.